Welcome to the Long Take Review, a film podcast with one eye always on the Oscar race. I'm your host, Jen Sipchak-Bankard, and I'm here with two friends who scored higher on their Oscar predictions than I did. I'm not bitter about that at all. First, his eyes see Oppenheimer. It's P.T. McNiff. How's it going, P.T.?
I love Field of Dreams. That should win Best Picture. Though they'll probably go with one of this year's. I'm doing well, Jen. Long time no see. How are you feeling?
Doing great. Yes, you're right. Like it does feel like you were just at my house and now you're on my computer. It's kind of weird. And he wants to thank his stylist in case no one else does. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
I said, wouldn't it be crazy if a naked man was on stage tonight? I'm good, Jen. How are you?
Now I'm really glad I didn't go with that bit as my reference because I almost did. I almost said I'm really glad he's not presenting best costume. But now we've come full circle. Great. So if you are listening to us, we are here to react to the 96th Academy Awards that just aired last night on ABC. It was a great time. There were text messages flying back and forth. There was a lot of fun to be had at my house. PT came to my house. It was a great time was had by all, I would say. So PT, before we get into it, if folks feel like we didn't go on too long, but we will, and didn't run over and want to listen to more, what can they do?
If they want to play us off more frequently, they can follow us wherever they get their podcasts, wherever they're listening right now. Hit that subscribe button. And while you're doing it, why not leave a rating and a review to increase the visibility? But we're hosted on Jen's Substack, thelongtake.substack.com. You can also find us Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, any place you get audio enjoyment. You can find us there. You can also look for us on Instagram and Threads at The Long Take Review. You can also find us on Letterboxd at LTR Pod.
Thanks, VT. So I think the logical place to start is to just talk about the ceremony in general, our kind of experience watching it. Greg, why don't we start with you, because you had sort of an unusual way of watching the show.
Yes, I did. Back to you, Jen.
Great.
I had a fantastic Oscar night. So there's a small independent movie theater here in Cambridge, Massachusetts, called the Brattle Theater. And one of the rewards they give their members is that you can come to the theater and watch the Oscars on the big screen for free. They can't charge for that. Don't want to get them in trouble with the Academy, and hang out in the movie theater. And they do trivia during the commercial breaks. They sell full concessions. So I am not a member, but my very good friend Ben is. And so he and I got Tasty Burger, just some deliciously greasy cheeseburgers, and then headed into the Brattle and ate giant buckets of popcorn and had 3 beers or so during the ceremony. And it was awesome. It was great. I really had underappreciated what watching it with a crowd is like, and hearing like a bunch of movie nerds get really excited when they say Zone of Interest wins best sound and there's like audible cheers in the room. You just kind of soak it in and you're just like, my people, like I found you, like we're here, we're doing it. And I will say it's an art house movie theater, so it probably is not surprising that they were very behind Anatomy of a Fall, and anything related to that got whoops and cheers and so on. Probably seemed like the most popular one in the room, I would guess.
Nice. That's good to know. Not the same whoops and cheers for Zone of Interest, but that's understandable, just based on the content of the movie. And actually, yeah, like
a fist pump, just a little like yes, like quiet celebration for that.
Yeah, I do feel like PT had to, while sitting on my couch, sort of like explain to everyone why he was excited about Zone of Interest winning Best Sound, but not visibly excited, because that would be weird. Yeah, it was great. But yeah, PT, how did you enjoy watching the show? Probably was different because there's lots of children running around screaming and like people who were like half interested to not interested at all in my house. What was that like?
It was great. I mean, I appreciate this question is how did I do hosting a party? But you did wonderfully, Jen. It was it was excellent. It was really fun because there was a good mix of people. It's been a while since I'd gone to an Oscar party, but all the memories came back of it is very Super Bowl-esque, where it's a social event and a social gathering. So there's people that were like, I don't think ever left the kitchen to look at what was on the TV. Like they were just, we're here to hang out and talk. The kids were hanging in the back and in the backyard. So there was, some adults could be like, I'm supervising, and then not have to pay attention. There were the folks that kind of came and went that were sort of just, checking in to see what was going on, maybe check out some clothes or check out some jokes. And then there was like the core, like 10 people who were really locked in and had the ballots filled out. I was impressed at how many people filled out ballots who had only seen one or two movies, and then got very invested in whatever they had somewhat randomly chosen.
Yeah.
We can discuss how the winner in the room was like, well, I just followed Jen's theories and suggestions, and so in many ways Jen still won the pool just by proxy. And I really liked that all the little kids only really tuned in, like, and all kind of came from all different parts of the house to lock onto the screen for two things: I'm Just Ken and John Cena naked. And those moments were huge hits with the long take review, The Next Generation, who were present in the room.
Yeah, it was really funny because like I was like, oh, of course, like the like naked actor walking on stage is the thing that gets everybody back in the room, and suddenly the kids are paying attention, which I feel like is pretty typical for like kids. You think kids aren't paying attention, but really they're always paying attention. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait a minute, like you weren't even listening to this conversation, and now you retain all of it. So yes, that was hilarious, and it was like a very palpable sort of during the John Cena bit of like just everybody rushed into the room.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that I was not expecting, and it was pretty funny. And so so I think those two moments, actually, I would probably say, if we're going to talk about the ceremony as a show, right, I think those were probably the two biggest highlights, especially for sort of more mainstream audiences. But I do, before we get to that and kind of evaluate like Jimmy Kimmel and like how the bits and like how they set up the show, because I do want to talk about that. But yeah, shout out to my friend Anne, who's a mutual friend of our loyal listener Hasib, and so she was really locked in and said she had listened to our episodes and was sort of using our breakdown to inform her voting, and she only got one wrong.
Wow.
It was incredible. Yeah, she got 22 out of 23, and so she applied my picks, I think, better than she applied my ideas for my picks better than I did, because I think she had the Poor Things for makeup. And so she was like, well, I went all the way with Poor Things in the design categories. And I was like, smart, really smart. Wish I had done that.
What was the one?
This is the thing I couldn't remember.
I think she chose, did she choose Spider-Verse for animated?
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
Wow.
Yeah, she had Spider-Verse instead of Heron. So, but she called Emma Stone. And I remember having a conversation with her before the show started where she's like, you know what? I just feel it. I think it's going to be Emma Stone. And we're all going to be like, this is so awkward because Lily Gladstone was supposed to win. And sure enough, that's the one. And I was like, yeah, but like Lily Gladstone won SAG, right? And then look who's right and who's wrong. Yeah.
Not all coaches can execute the game plan. I mean, sometimes you need the players. They are what we grow beyond, et cetera, et cetera. The student has become the master.
But yeah, that was really fun because she was like, wow, I got that right too. And I was like, what? But anyway, yeah, so the show, actually, I would say better than it has been, or like seemed pretty good. I had pretty few complaints. But why do you agree with that, first of all, because I don't want to presume, and then why do we think that was like, why do we feel like it was maybe a better show as a thing on TV to watch than it has been in the past?
I mean, I definitely agree that I thought this was a very strong ceremony. There were, like a couple of blips we can get into and talk about maybe towards the very end of the ceremony. But, overall, it was just, it felt crisp. It felt focused on the movies and on sort of what was happening, which I feel like my memory is they sort of started doing that last year. It was kind of the makeup for sorry that we were trying to move some of the awards off ceremony, and so I think that they've refocused on that. They've recentered what they're doing, and they started an hour earlier, as we sort of mentioned in the preview episodes. But I was a little worried that meant they were going to just give themselves a full 4 hours and say like, great, we have till 11 East Coast time. But instead, that was still pretty as tight as an Oscar ceremony can be. It was about 3:15. It started a few minutes late, and I remember, Jen, when you stopped the DVR, it said 3 hours and 18 minutes. So I think that was pretty good. I think Kimmel's a strong host. Like I think he's really was always pretty good, but I think he's grown into really having a handle on how to do this. There were the bits were either funny or short enough that it didn't get to be too annoying. I feel like they didn't do any sort of let's really like work the crowd and deal with the audience, which always feels like death. And it was maybe it's because I watched more of the movies this year, and so I had more of a vested interest. So even every award felt like something that was engaging and worthwhile. But it just felt like it moved and it worked. I don't know. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a really entertaining night of television. And obviously this is what we do, but I think we've all suffered through some really long, boring Oscars telecasts, and it kept moving. I think everything you just credited, but also the order of the awards really worked. I will say, when they did, they started with Best Supporting Actress, and they had the 5 nominees come out. I think my buddy Ben was like, "Wow, this is taking a long time. Like it was a lot for each award." But I was like, "This is what I want. Like this is if we're gonna do the extra time, let's do something special like that." And all those moments were really nice. I think throughout the evening, 1 or 2 exceptions where you could tell, like, well, I'm the guy who signed up last week and we don't have a friend of this person, but I'll say some nice things about them as if we're friends, versus, people, I mean, I think Jamie Lee Curtis starting right off with Jodie Foster, and it was clearly so personal. It was really, really nice. And I like those moments a lot. I think it was a good production, right? Like just they found the right places for the musical numbers. I already heard Sean Fennessy on Big Picture complaining they didn't do clips for the actors. They did the talking to each other thing instead. But like we got a lot of clips of the movies, and I think if there are people out there who watched the ceremony, you got a good sense of what each of them were, and probably if you want to go watch them now, if you didn't tune in. So I was just Googling, and it doesn't look like the ratings are out as of this recording, but I'm going to guess that they're up this year. And I think having a really fun show while they were up, presumably, I think it's going to pay off in years to come, which is exciting. And we've shouted out a bunch of the good comedy bits. Shout out to Steven Spielberg, kind of nailing his little moments when Kate McKinnon asks, "Who have I been sending my tasteful nudes to?" And he, deadpanned right to camera, and yeah, it was perfect. He did a great job.
There was another one too where he it was that kid from the Fabelmans.
Yeah,
Right?
Yes.
That was really funny.
He looked worried at first that they were making fun of the Fabelmans, right? To me,
Right. And then he was like, "Oh no, they made me."
No. They're just making a joke and using me as the punchline. So
Right.
yeah, very good. I think it was clear to me John Mulaney was auditioning for next year, which would be fine. But Kimmel has been doing a really good, solid job of like just keeping everything moving. Many of his jokes landed with me. I laughed pretty hard. I did love after Emma Stone won, and he said, "Destroy that envelope," because that, of course, is how we got into the wrong Best Picture winner being announced many years ago. So.
Yes, yeah.
Jen, were you too busy being host? Could you evaluate the ceremony?
I was very fortunate. I think everyone else was watching my children. I was really lucky to be able to plant myself on the couch for most of it, and just get up every once in a while, and so that was really nice. But yeah, I think my favorite thing is probably the bringing out the nominees, because you're right. Like when it was just someone reading off the teleprompter, it was still nice because it was like complimenting the nominee. But when it was someone who clearly like knew them and kind of went off the teleprompter and kind of spoke more freely, like that was really special. And so um and I'm trying to think of specific ones, but I feel like Sam Rockwell talking about Robert Downey Jr. was probably one. And like,
Mhm.
yeah, there were just a couple people who kind of like just kind of spoke as if they were just talking about the person as a friend. And so that was really cool. And but my absolute favorite sort of surprise of the show was Messy the dog.
Mm.
PT's like smiling because he knew I was going to say this. So there had been news, like there was like an official announcement or a press release or something that was like Messy the dog will not be able to make it to the Oscars. There was something I saw on the internet that was like, no, he's not going to be there. And I was really sad, but I had accepted it and I had moved on. So then when they cut to Messy the dog in the audience wearing a bow tie as a part of the opening, was it technically the opening monologue? I remember
It was the opening monologue, and it was one of the moments when Kimmel, with that Spielberg one, when Kimmel made a joke and it cut someone in the crowd, and it was like, I don't know if they like this. It was after he had kind of done a few bits with Robert Downey Jr., who was looking less and less amused, and it was like an immediate save by going into a Messy, and cannot understate how much Jen lit up. It was just like, oh my god! It was the biggest surprise of the night for Jen, and also like the happiest thing that it seemed like as happy as she's ever been.
I just love that dog so much. Before we hopped on, I was like, oh, maybe I should make an outline of questions for this episode. And I had every intention of doing that. And then I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube of like Messy the dog interview videos.
Perfect.
Apparently they had to like drench the tennis ball in glue to get it to go down the stairs to get it. I don't know. It was like there's a whole messy, it's a whole world of messy press coverage that's there for you if you want it. But yeah, that was great. And I think to keep coming back, because there were 3 moments that had Messy the dog where he's like very clearly fake paws are clapping. And
that's an old Conan bit. They stole that.
And yes,
I was like, that's Triumph. Yeah.
And at the end, he's relieving himself on the. So I don't know. It's just like though it was the whole. I loved, and to me this was so emblematic of the show striking the right balance, right? Because Messy the dog only kind of means something to people who have seen Anatomy of a Fall. You know what I mean? Like I love that dog because he's amazing in Anatomy of a Fall and has become kind of this like campaign trail darling. But also if you're just coming into this cold, is a cute dog. Who can argue with that? You know what I mean? And so like I do think that was kind of representative of why the show overall worked. Same thing why Kimmel's a good host. I think it's because he can kind of make fun of people but not cross a line somehow, and he's also kind of mixing between in industry in jokes, right, and sort of like just sort of broader comedy. So yeah, I'd say I was pretty happy all around. I think Ryan Gosling stole the show with I'm Just Ken. Like, and I feel like I've said on previous episodes, the live performances are tough because like it's just even the best singers can sometimes crack. Like I'm kind of thinking of Idina Menzel, the year she did Let It Go, and I was like,
sorry, PT, she means Adele Dazeem.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I knew that was going to come up. Yeah, and like she's an incredible singer, veteran of Broadway, and she still had a couple of pitchy moments, right? And it was kind of tough because just the nature of that song. It's sort of like when people sing the national anthem live, and you're just like, oh, like really nervous for them. But Ryan Gosling, I feel like he sounded great. There was so much, like it was such an intricate number. Like there were so many dancers, and he's moving around all around the theater. Like, so I think, I don't know, he did a great job.
I agree, and I think he also had a really good category presentation with Emily Blunt. Or it wasn't a category; it was a non-category.
Yeah, what was that?
It was just doing "We love you, stunt peoples. Don't be mad that we don't have a category for you yet." But I think in reaction to all the folks saying, "What about stunts?" in the addition of the casting category in the near future, but yeah, I mean, their bit about Barbenheimer I thought was really good. He was playing the sort of angry dude to Emily Blunt. I thought quite well, and when there were jokes about Barbie or Ken and they cut to him, he was yeah, he was the winner of the night, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, in him and Christopher Nolan, obviously, were the two big winners. And I think, I thought all the musical numbers worked really well, which is particularly painful because I was just into the Amanda Dobbins inspired rant of like, they shouldn't even have song anymore. Like, don't do these performances. It's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. And then Billie Eilish killed it. Amazing staging. The Killers of the Flower Moon group song was incredible. And then even the sort of the other two, sorry, Jean-Baptiste and Diane Warren, but those were very well done and seemed mercifully edited, cut short. And then I'm Just Ken was blew the roof off. So I thought that those were real highlights, and I had to eat my words that they should have had them at the show. It would have been a real disappointment to not have them.
I want to praise where they placed I'm Just Ken. I mean, I think there was a lot of speculation it would be late because they wanted to make sure they grabbed that Barbie audience and kept them on as long as possible. But it also just was this huge burst of energy at the moment the show kind of naturally, you're like, all right, I'm getting kind of tired of all these things, especially people who don't watch the movies. I mean, shorts, documentary, international don't mean a lot to your casual viewer. And you got this pop of energy going right into the big categories. And I didn't put it together till this morning that they were doing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Did you realize that? Have you seen the comparison shots?
I haven't, but I kind of was like, oh yeah, it's that sequence.
Yep. The pink, and then would those be cravats that the men were wearing? But back to Jen's question in the pre-show, they got all the Kens. Now you were dreaming of fantasy Kens, but Simu Liu was there, Kingsley was there, the Doctor was there, future crossover episode with Doctor Who, perhaps. And it was really
Chris
great.
Evans' brother was there.
The I was going to say Lesser Evans, but that seems rude. And they all looked like they were having a great time. And in the theater, they had the red carpet show playing with no sound, so you could just kind of chat in your seats. And when I saw Simu Liu there, I was like, oh, I think I know why he's there. Like, he is obviously a celebrity and could just be there. But I was like, I think I know why you get. And then I also saw the Doctor, and I was like, I think
you put it together. Good detective work.
Yes, with the very obvious clues that they put immediately in the show before the show, I figured it out. Yeah.
Well, I think this. I will note this now. We'll see if this is worth talking about any further. But I did go back and read what Jen would refer to as normie reactions to the ceremony as it unfolded. And obviously, I'm Just Ken, a huge hit. Feels like last night was the time that a lot of people, even folks who watch a lot of movies and are fans of Barbie in particular, realize that Slash does the guitar solo in I'm Just Ken, like in the original version. But like it seemed like when Slash hit the stage, people were just like, oh, this is perfect. Like, what a great way to sort of bridge generations to get, like, they were thinking it was like Elton John coming out to play Stan with Eminem. Like, it's just like, they're bridging generations by like, it's like, he just was on the record. Like, he was there. Right. Like, it's not that strange. Like, him and the younger Van Halen, it's not a weird choice to have them there. They were part of the recording. But yeah, the production was incredible. Jasmine was really hoping for Simu Liu and the other Kens. It was a little bit like, oh, well, like when Gosling hit the stage and it was the dancers, like just the sort of, cowboy hat dancers. She was just like, oh, okay, like that's nice. And then they like changed the camera angles and all the Kens were there, and she was
I feel like
not
someone...
as excited as Jen seeing Messi, but pretty excited for Simu.
I feel like someone said, oh, so no Simu Liu, and I was like, just wait, we're only like 30 seconds in.
Someone was Jasmine. It was Jasmine who said
okay, that's why I couldn't remember, but yeah.
And they were all really dancing too. It's not like it was a stand there cameo. Like clearly they had worked out the choreography. And I just also want to shout out when they lifted Gosling and they had the Barbie faces. Like that is a tough bit of camera working and choreography, and they just nailed it all. I'm sure
really high production value. I think my mom was telling me that she was reading a news article that before the show, like it was sort of like advertising the broadcast, that this is the biggest musical number in Oscars history. in terms of number of people on the
Oh, that's
stage and
interesting.
like that kind of stuff. So I believed it when I saw it. I was like, this is great. I'm like, and now it's gonna set like an unreasonable standard, I feel like, for next year to be like, because we might not have another I'm Just Ken, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it was such a specific that this movie made it so big and this song became so popular. You know what I mean? Like, it was a good confluence of things. Next year we might not have the equivalent, and people might be like we're spoiled now, I think, is my
Right.
point.
Well,
But
at least they didn't have to do the "We Don't Talk About Bruno" of like, this song's not nominated, folks, but we are going to perform it because you know it. So it was
Yeah.
nice that it was a big song that everyone knew, that people were excited to see, and it was nominated, even though then it lost. And not to get too deep into awards, but then the normie reaction was, oh, so like the best part of the night, and they're just like throwing it away because they gave it to the boring song, which is a bad take in my opinion. But there's that, and then also I can't believe Barbie only won one award, which is very unsurprising for those of us who pay a lot of attention to this. But I think that is as predicted. One of the sort of reactions is, really, that was it for Barbie.
Yeah, and I think this is how we transition to talking about the actual winners. To me, actually, the one of the things that I'm Just Ken sort of proved is that, because Greta Gerwig looked so happy, you know what I mean, when they go over to her and she's singing along, and like, and she's clearly like loved making this movie, loves all the people involved in making the movie. You know what I mean? It just felt like a nice reunion for all of them, and that they were just celebrating and having their moment. And to me, I was like, you know what? This is them being like, we're above whether we win, how many Oscars we win. You know what I mean? To them, it became very clear to me that they didn't care, right? That they were just like, we just the fact that we were only winning one Oscar for best song, for the song that's not even like the biggest song on the broadcast, right? That none of that matters, and that they are sort of like above all of that. And I thought that was really great. I mean, obviously, like, the optics of the movie that everyone loves the most, who's like most of the people watching the show, only wins one. It's not even for the song that everyone loves. Like, it's like kind of, that's still all there. But I feel like it was really nice to sort of see all of them just be so happy to be together and be celebrating this movie.
Yeah, I loved that moment when he went over to the three ladies from the film, and remember, they weren't sitting together like
That's
that.
right.
So they were arranged for him to do that, and it was clearly planned, and his little way of shouting them out, which was really nice. A very long time ago, I saw a political commentator giving a book talk, and he was asked, like, should so and so run for president? I think at the time it was Elizabeth Warren. This is like long before she actually ran. And he said, why would you want to be president when you can be a legend? And I feel like, to your point, this is Barbie's like, we don't need best picture. Why do you want to be best picture when you could be the center of culture and all this other things? And I think it's, in the long run, look at every Halloween from now on, you're going to see somebody dressed up as someone from that movie. And that just has a cultural purchase that matters a lot more than, in this one year, we were told we were the best movie. I mean, I love the Oscar. I sound like down on it, but like, Oppenheimer right up there with best picture winner Nomadland. You guys think about Nomadland a lot? Like, I'm sorry, all due respect, great film. I haven't thought about that like more than 5 times since it won the Oscar. And I think Oppenheimer is a different kind of winner, but I think there is just a way in which it's like, it's better to be the greatest thing in pop culture than maybe the number one thing in culture.
And I promised I wasn't going to get into it in this episode too much, but there is a fun video that I just saw right before we started recording that Martin Scorsese's daughter recorded in the crowd, of him watching I'm Just Ken and just cackling and just giggling like a little kid, as it always be like, oh my God, like watching this old movie musical sequence unfold in front of him, and then like oohing at the fireworks at the end. And I think if Greta Gerwig on any level were like, oh, I don't know, like, it would have been, why didn't I get more of a reward? I mean, Marty has had had some wins, but a bunch. He's had a lot more losses. The John Williams article that came out last week where someone was like, oh, you've got the most Oscar nominations ever. Like you've won like so many times, like you've won 5 times and you've got 54 nominations. And his response, I think, in good nature was, oh, it means I've lost 49 times. And there's many great movies, many great directors who don't end up getting an award or getting the recognition in the moment. And we love the Oscars. We always have one eye on them. However, it is not the be all and end all of value and impact and legacy. I think that everyone involved in Barbie was like, this is fine. I don't think any of them had a Annette Bening face about like, I can't believe I lost another one. There wasn't. They didn't have that energy. They seem really happy. Like they've already won. This was a victory lap for them.
Just to underscore that, just remember where we were last April when we were like, what? Greta Gerwig made a movie about Barbie?
That's true.
What is this train wreck going to be? And the fact that they could be celebrated at this level, I mean, the Golden Globe for best whatever they called it, box office achievement. I always liked all the commentators who were like, guys, we don't need this. The prize is the money. Like, yes, the prize is the money. Of course, they all get to do whatever they want next because they've got so much cachet. But it's really great. But
cachet,
you're right,
and cash.
Yeah. Ayo. I want to throw it to you with the question of like, which of our sorry you got nothings do you feel worst about?
I mean, I know what PT's answer is.
So you don't have to say that one necessarily.
I sat next to him as he grumbled every time Killers of the Flower Moon didn't get something. It was amazing.
I mean, I knew they weren't going to get it. It was for most of it. It was like, oh, it should get production design. Like it should get editing but like I knew it wasn't going to, and I was fine with that. But it was unfortunate.
So wait, who actually went home empty-handed? It was Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro. So my unifying theory of like everyone's going to get one bone thrown to them didn't totally pan out.
Well, it was pretty good. Wait, I took too many notes, so now
in the past lives, I think it's those 3.
Now I have to find. Here we go. It was this year, multiple nominations with no wins: Society of the Snow, Past Lives, Naiad, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oof. The Creator, Napoleon, and then the 2 big ones with 7 is Maestro, and with 10, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Wow.
Okay. But out of the Best Picture nominees, it's just those 3, right?
And Past Lives. Yes, it's just those.
And Past Lives, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro. Yeah, I mean, I knew I didn't have any hopes for Past Lives, but I felt like I thought Maestro was going to get makeup. That went to Poor Things. Which again, like it's just Poor Things sweep of the design categories, like makeup, costume, production design, right? Those were a lot of people were betting on Barbie for those categories. So I think that's where the sort of like Barbie underperformed narrative kind of comes from for a lot of people who are surprised or kind of upset about that. Because I remember a lot of people at my house were sort of like, well, Barbie certainly will get costumes, right? Like I feel like a lot of people like, and my mom, I think that morning was like, it should really get like set design. Like, those sets are amazing. Right. And so it's just really interesting that that's definitely not how it panned out, that it went with Poor Things. What is that? I guess for the Poor Things versus Barbie shootout, specifically in those categories, like what does Poor Things cleaning up there tell us, if anything?
I mean, it means there was more love for Poor Things than we thought. And we shouldn't be surprised. Poor Things did have the second most nominations, I believe. Like that had 11. So it's just Poor Things has been popular. And I think that there's the sort of hype and the us chattering class members were talking about it and being like, oh, it has momentum. Oh, I don't know if it does. But it just kind of chugged along and was just doing good. And people were like, yeah, we like Poor Things. This is a good movie. And I think there was perhaps a feeling that in a different year, Emma Stone would have been like locked down to win, in a context where there weren't these other performances where, she already had one. If she hadn't won for La La Land, I think even with Lily Gladstone, with Sandra Hüller, it would have been whatever. Like it's done. It's locked up. And because it seemed like she wasn't going to win, which of course isn't how it turned out. But it seemed like she wasn't going to win. Then, let's consolidate. Let's really put more into voting in these below the line categories. Felt strong. And yeah, what ended up happening, for me, the headline, now 36 minutes into the recording, smart to get to the headline for me. The headline of the night is, there was all this sort of talk of what's going to happen. Is it going to be a historic night for Oppenheimer? Is it going to sort of start to take these extra awards and get a bigger tail and get double digits, tie with the most at 11, break the most with 12? Didn't seem likely, but it seemed possible. And we ended up with basically the same award allotment as last year. We have the top movie got 7, a backup movie got 4, another movie got 2, and then a bunch of spreading the wealth with the remaining 6 for feature length movies. So that's it was that Poor Things was this year's All Quiet on the Western Front, except in my mind, those sort of the second and third place movies in terms of number of awards were much better this year. I would take Poor Things and Zone of Interest over All Quiet and The Whale. But that's just me.
That's the other thing, is because Emma Stone won, the makeup acting pairing still stands.
Oh wow, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was something I said on this podcast and then didn't listen to my own advice.
Although in looking
back,
this
is what Anne did. Yeah.
Right. In looking back over recent years, I did find there were 1 or 2 years in the last 5 where that didn't pan out. Where it could have, there was something nominated in acting, but the makeup didn't carry forward. But yeah, that is an instance where, because when it won makeup, I believe it was, Anne said at first, was just sort of like, oh yeah, Emma Stone, and you were like, no, that's not happening.
Get out of my house.
Well, because that's what I didn't want to be wrong. But the other thing too, I realized after this year, is that I think we need to be taking BAFTA more seriously, because I think in my punditry circles that of podcast, I shouldn't say that. That makes me sound like I know all these people. The podcasts I listen to of Oscar pundits, they all were kind of like, BAFTA's weird. They have a weird voting system. There are these jury saves, and it might tell us what the international block arm or the international block of the Academy might be into, but it's not a reliable precursor. But I feel like it is, right? Because the Poor Things domination was very, in retrospect, I'm like, it was there. The evidence was there.
Yeah.
The below the line sweep for Poor Things plus Emma Stone was there.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at the BAFTA. I don't see anything off from what the Oscars were. I mean, and that's also partially because the other 3 acting awards were pretty locked. Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, and Screenplays, Boy and the Heron. You're right. That is in line with how it turned out, even on some of the coin flips.
Yeah, and they had Zone for sound too, right?
I believe that's right.
Yep.
So,
yes,
look out. BAFTAs are here.
Yeah, or is that an indicator that the BAFTAs are a good bellwether for international voters in the Academy, or did it happen to be that some of the surging movies were a British movie in the Zone of Interest and a very European movie that would hit with the BAFTAs in Poor Things, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will be a
That's true. It's correlation, not
a future performance indicator.
For sure.
So I was just going to say, already established, I did the best out of all of us. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, we should say what the scores were for everybody. Sorry.
Well, so I missed 3 total. And if there is a theme to mine, it is that I still thought Poor Things was going to underperform. And one of the embarrassing text message I sent this weekend was, I think Poor Things is a little soft, which is absolutely wrong. But it did feel to me this weekend like Poor Things is just the critics talking to each other about how good it is. And it was hard to tell if that had broken through. Now, where I think I needed to have my butt kicked is Poor Things to me feels like old news because I saw it in December. And yet I think a lot of people saw it in late January, February because of the really strange rollout it had. and it's also made $100 million, which is like
Mhm.
Whoa.
crazy when you think about where that started and how, that was one of the films I was bemoaning that they just needed to show us by the time I felt like I finally got to see it in December. And I think it was helped by its release. It is now on Hulu, so it's really accessible. And I think the kind of average Oscar viewer had probably already seen Oppenheimer. A lot of people I talked to they're like, I only saw Barbie and Oppenheimer this year. And so I think now, people will seek out Poor Things, I imagine, and fill in that gap and have a wild time, probably not realizing what they're getting into. Hey, kids, come sit down. It's Poor Things night. Like, grab the popcorn. So that to me, so two of the ones I missed Poor Things on Makeup and Poor Things on Emma Stone. I will say I have a few, mostly positive. I have a few things I'm grumpy about. Probably the biggest disappointment of the night to me was Lily Gladstone losing.
Yeah.
Just for all that PT has said about us not valuing Marty enough. It's an incredible movie. She did an incredible job in it. And I wanted to see the historic nature of that win. With all due respect to Emma Stone, who was very good in Poor Things, a film that I still find okay.
I feel like the only explanation at this point and what this kind of signifies is that the discourse around, is she lead, is she supporting, does she have enough screen time, is her role big enough in the movie, that really seemed to kind of play out. And we had sort of seen that pop up in a couple of which I normally don't pay attention to, but a couple of the anonymous ballots. I think, of people being like, well, Lily Gladstone's like barely in this, like, she's not really in the movie, like, I'm not gonna vote for her, you know what I mean? Like, so that seems to be what happened. I don't know, what do you think, PT?
Well, I think that's a part of it for sure. And there is, I think the right move was made to have her campaign and lead for the narrative they wanted to have about the film, and to sort of give her even more sort of a centered performance. It was a gamble. The gamble didn't win in terms of the Oscar. I think it may have won in terms of the narrative, about the movie and the Osage and her sort of historic moment. That said, I did spend part of the drive home thinking about how if she had just been in supporting, it would have been a shame, because Da'Vine getting an Oscar was incredible and that role was wonderful. And I'm so glad The Holdovers has an Academy Award and that it's for that performance. But would she have just marched the way that Da'Vine marched? And it just would have been no question of just, yep, Lily Gladstone, boom, like, done in supporting. That's, is that something that they'll be, some publicists will be fretting about. Again, I don't think Marty or Lily is going to be particularly worried. But I also think, and this is based on just sort of reading smart people, but who are not like locked into certainly awards talk, but also just sort of not going and running out and seeing movies right away. But seeing people who are doing I'm catching up on the Oscar movies in the time between just the best pictures between nominations and when the movie came out. And there was a lot of Emma Stone is absolutely incredible. These are obviously non-voters, but there's Emma Stone's incredible. She's wonderful. I don't know what Lily Gladstone's doing. It's boring. She didn't do anything. And that movie is boring. And I watched it over 4 nights and I don't get the hype. There was a lot of that for Killers of the Flower Moon. People, it's a very long movie. There were jokes about last night. And it is tough. I'm a big Marty defender about what have we done in terms of not rewarding him, but he has also been making movies for the last decade that are minimum 2 hours and 45 minutes, cresting up to 3.5 hours. Most adult people do not have that amount of time to spend in one sitting. But I also think that the experience of watching them, you need to watch it all at once for everything to really connect and have an impact. And to have Lily Gladstone's last scene in Killers of the Flower Moon, hits so hard when you've been on this journey in one sitting with this character, that I think a lot of people were just there's no there. Nothing's happening. Her face is blank. She's just not doing that much. And she's not present in the movie. So I don't particularly care. And I think that, I was undervaluing that because I was like, no, but I love her. No. And the Academy wants to look good. They're going to give, the first Native American nominated. They're going to give her an award and they'll spread the wealth. It's going to be fine. And I think there were a lot of people who found Emma Stone undeniable and very sort of, it was very, I don't want to say flashy because that sounds pejorative, but, it was very big and very like clear that she was acting. And I think that served the role really well. And I thought was absolutely incredible, except for the fact that someone else lost. I am in love with the fact that Emma Stone won an Oscar for this performance. But it's a huge bummer that Lily Gladstone didn't win. And yeah, I don't know how you reconcile that. Again, maybe having people compete for awards for artistic performances that are inherently subjective experiences is inherently dumb. But yeah, here we are. So I don't know.
Emma Stone genuinely seemed shocked. And actually, there was like a flash of kind of disappointment on her face, I feel like, to be like, oh no, it was me and not Lily. Like, what am I going to do? But I genuinely think her speech was one of the best of the night because it had that sort of, and partly that's because it's a surprise. Like oftentimes the best Oscar moments in Oscar history in terms of acceptance speeches are because people are so beside themselves and so flustered that they say funny things or just like they're really speaking from the heart and that sort of thing. But I feel like that was the moment that we got that was sort of like that sort of flash in the pan kind of like, oh, this is the type of moment that can only be at the Oscars. Because she sort of was just like trying to compose herself in real time. And then talk the way that she talked about how it's not about me, it's about a whole team, right? My win isn't just for me. It sort of like represents all the hard people who are working really hard on this movie. I thought that was really nice and probably was the best thing she could have said given the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I absolutely think you're right. And it's like her performance is louder, it's shinier. And I think I actually said this during voting. Like I posted a thing very like, not really expecting anyone who could vote to see it, but to be like, let's make Lily Gladstone happen. Like her performance is much subtler, but she has as much power and fury, I think was the phrase that I used, as Emma Stone in hers, even though, she's not threatening to punch babies and stuff like that, like, or dancing across a room, right? Like that the power is still there in the performance. And I think it's just hard for other people to see that potentially. Yeah, especially if you're distracted when you're watching these movies or something like that.
I would also add, don't forget that everybody was watching The Curse in January too.
We got that prestige
so
TV bump.
A McConaughey-esque
I now think it's working against her because I did not watch The Curse, but I believe the character in that movie gets in trouble for stealing things from indigenous peoples. Yeah. And so now there's a lot of hot internet takes that think these are very clever. Like, but it's like, who cares? Like that's stupid and not worth our time. But I do think that helps.
Here's my question for the two of you. I'll start. First comparison to her co-star. Second comparison to the most awkward presentation of an award for the night. What is going to be Lily Gladstone's The Revenant or Scent of a Woman? Like, what's going to be the award she gets?
The thing that we're making
in 5, 8, 10 years, where it's just like, oh yeah, okay, like she should have won it for this other thing, but it didn't happen. And now she's got the makeup award, like for. Not for makeup, but the award where it's like, here's the consolation prize for a movie people don't really like and don't really want to pay attention to, but you have an Oscar now, Lily. Like, we've corrected our mistake. And then some other younger person gets screwed out of an award. And the cycle
continues. Yeah.
So that was a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to know what Lily Gladstone's movie will be in 5 years.
To end our Best Actress discussion on a nice note, Katie Rich from Little Gold Men had a really nice post, and it's like, I'm going to show my screen, which I know is bad for podcasting, but it's of Annette Bening, Lily Gladstone, and Emma Stone hugging. Her caption is really nice. People nominated for Oscars often tell you about the friendships they formed on the campaign trail, and Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone has been a thrilling one, right? And this is as like Katie Rich is a reporter for Vanity Fair, like she's like mixing. She's interviewing these people. She's mixing with them, right? So she, she has that kind of ethos to back up what she's saying. When I interviewed Lily in January, she showed me the ring Emma had sent her just the day before in honor of them being, quote, the Infinity Stones. I have no idea what it's like to be up for a major award and not win it, of course, but I genuinely believe Lily is going to be everywhere for years and years to come, and that she's also thrilled her friend won for a stunning performance.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
And I'm like, that just made me feel really good about something I didn't feel great about before. So I'll leave you with that.
I was joking about the Revenant or Scent of a Woman, but like, it feels like a non-zero possibility Lily Gladstone gets another run at an award for something produced by Emma Stone. Because I think Emma Stone, like major producer in that Brad Pitt mold of, getting real like awards worthy movies up off the ground with her celebrity and with her status, is in her future. And it does seem like they have a genuine connection. Maybe that was campaign hype and narrative building for, for a shared purpose between the two of them, but it seems possible. Maybe they'll work together.
Yeah.
I want to just answer your rhetorical question and say Lily Gladstone is going to reteam with Kelly Reichardt, and they're both going to come up with something. I mean, everything they've done together has been really good, but it's going to bring them both up to the Oscar level. That's my prediction.
I love it.
Just save that recording, Jen, for Long Take Review 2032.
So we can bring that back out and be like, see, Greg was right. He told us so. Love it.
I will note
3 years ago, but he was right 8 years ago.
There we go. I will note that just to actually close off the actress category, I did pick Emma Stone on my official ballot because my approach for all the coin flip categories was I voted. I predicted for the one I least wanted to win. Again, I loved Emma Stone. I loved her performance. I'm glad she won an Oscar for it. It was very deserved. But I wanted Lily Gladstone to win more. So I did like a flip every time to sort of hedge my emotions.
You're protecting your heart.
I protected my heart. And there were five of those categories where I did that. And that was the only one where my heart lost. And so my head won with Emma Stone. The other categories, my heart won, and I feel great about it, even though that put me in second place behind Greg in the actual numbers.
So Greg had, if people are not keeping, because we referred to this a bunch of time, but haven't actually laid out the scores. So like,
it's true.
Greg had 20 out of 23 correct. PT had
19.
Sounds like 19. I had 18, and then Antonio had.
I think he missed
23 minus 7.
Oh, 7.
Okay.
That would be 16.
16.
If it's
right.
7, yeah.
So that was sort of how the rankings fell. What made me feel better, because Greg, on my car ride back from dropping my son off from school, I caught like the first 10 minutes of Big Picture, just because I couldn't help I was like, I knew we were recording in like half an hour, but I was like, I can't help myself. I gotta listen to it at least a little bit. But they had 17 and 18. I think Sean had 17 right. Amanda had 18. So that made me feel a lot better. I was like. Because I was pretty mad at myself yesterday.
I can confirm Jen is very in the zone when the awards are coming out. And the magic was watching her be able to leave the zone when it's like they're doing a bit, there's a commercial, and she's being a good hostess. She's like taking care of her kids. Someone gets called to another room to do something. And then it's like, like here comes someone to present an award, and she's back sitting down, and she's like locked in, and is just really there. And then, I would say she's like curled over her piece of paper, but she's not, because it's all in her head, and she knows like every category she's chosen. She knows what she's doing. She knew the thought process, and there was a lot of hands thrown in the air with a what every time someone won that she had not predicted.
But I have to say, and this is an actual transition, so we can talk about something else. For me, and I want to hear for both of you, what was the most pleasant surprise in terms of like something that you didn't expect it to? For me, it was Boy and the Heron versus Spider-Verse, which is crazy because that I'm even saying that, because I like Across the Spider-Verse was one of my favorite movies of the year, but I really wanted Miyazaki to get another Oscar, and I didn't think that there was going to be another opportunity. And so like that was sort of my thought process. And I really wanted Boy and the Heron to win. And so I kept thinking in my prediction, I'm like, is this the one place that I am not being sort of clear-eyed about this, right? And I had the sinking feeling. I'm like, it's probably going to be Spider-Verse. Literally everyone else is saying Spider-Verse. So then that was probably my loudest reaction, is when Boy and the Heron actually won. And I was so happy, because not just because I had gotten it right, but because I felt really, this was what I wanted to. So that for me was probably a big highlight. Disappointing Miyazaki didn't bother to show up. Not that was super surprising. But how about for both of you, sort of what was your, oh, and the other thing too was that on social media, the creators, I can't remember who it was specifically, but the creators behind Spider-Verse posted like, if you're going to lose, at least lose to the GOAT.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. I was like, that's
Nice.
a great response to have to not winning an Oscar. But yeah, how about for both of you, what was your like, most happiest surprise?
I will not treat you all to a second rant about the zone of interest sound, but that was one where I really went with my heart and took zone of interest. So when it delivered and they got it, I gave the fist pump. I was very excited. The one other than that probably had me jump up and clap, and there was actually a huge reaction in the theater for it as well, was Godzilla -1. In visual effects, was such a feel-good moment, and really exciting that's kind of the scrappy little movie that could. I forget if it was Big Picture or Little Gold Men, but there was reporting out this week that Spielberg watched Godzilla -1 and went and told the creators, I have loved your movie every time I've watched it, because he's watched it 3 times. And
Oh, wow.
I think if people have seen that, it's very Spielberg inspired. So it's not just that like this is clearly somebody they look up to, and they cited some of his movies in their speech, but like it, like, what a prize. And then to actually pull out the award, I did, we all talked through on a different episode our feelings about the creator. I wouldn't have hated if that had gotten recognized, but I was really excited that I was correct with my heart in that category for Godzilla -1. So not less enthused about the film bro behind me telling his girlfriend, like, well, you gotta see it in black and white. You see, it came out and they called it Godzilla -1 minus color, babe. And you gotta, I'm like, God, dude, like, she's here with you. Like, she came with you. Like, she's paid enough. Like, don't do this. Don't be that guy.
I love
film
that.
bros.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I think to both of those that you just said, looking back at the ones that I got wrong, not that I'm dwelling on that by any means, but looking back to what I got wrong and trying to understand what I could do better next year, like, it seems like the places I got wrong were where I didn't have enough hope. I was too cynical. And so Godzilla -1, I was like, I know everyone's excited about this, and I know this is but I interpret it as this is what everybody wants. It's not going to actually push through to the Academy. That was sort of my conclusion, that and my diagnosis that was incorrect. And so that was really nice, because like their reaction was so sincere and excited, and everyone's holding tiny Godzillas, and like it was just great to see. It was amazing. Same thing with Zone. I was like, I think Zone of Interest should win best sound. The sound is that movie. It's half of what's totally innovative and inspirational about that movie. Inspirational is probably the wrong word, but like what's like from a filmmaking perspective, you know what I mean? Like that, and it's so special. That's what we said on our other episode. But I was like, I don't think the Academy is going to recognize it. Maybe not enough people have seen it. Like I talked myself into being like, it's not going to happen. And so that was the same thing with Wes Anderson winning Best Short. I was like, he's not won an Oscar. The Academy hasn't recognized him yet. Why would they do that now? People are going to talk themselves into voting for something else because he's too big, he's too famous to be in this category. Like, I had this whole narrative running of like why Oscar voters are terrible, and I was really happy that time and time again that ended up not being true.
And I think the interesting question is, are Oscar voters no longer terrible, or was this just a good year for them, and the pendulum is going to swing back? We're going to get some sort of Green Book crash type hit in next year or the year after. I'm going to say you've all taken the three of the 4 ones where I voted with my head, but my heart won in sound, animated feature, and visual effects. I do feel bad because I did really like the creator. I thought the effects when they were even just the quick little like here nominated the creator, I was just like, oh right, like these robots were incredible. The effects were so good. Like this is good. If this movie wins, it's really good. And you know, it also had the narrative of didn't spend a lot of money like to get these like crazy effects. Like
Yep.
how good is that? But I just think that what ended up happening is enough people saw Godzilla -1 in addition to the creator and enough voters, I mean, and we're just like, oh, this movie's just way better. Like this is an actual good movie. Let's do that. And like the narrative of they did so much for so little, they had much less little or much more little than the creator. So you know, it does make sense. It felt like if the creator had won, it was one of those. If we had another, you know, week or two before the voting started, it probably would have gone to Godzilla -1. So I'm glad that won. I guess so. I will just say, and I feel a little bad kicking this movie while it's down. I was glad Poor Things won makeup and hairstyling. I know that maybe that was, you know, setting up the Lily Gladstone disappointment for me. But you know, I would not have been mad if Maestro got an Academy Award. I might have been a little perturbed if it ended up that Maestro got an Academy Award and Killers of the Flower Moon didn't. But okay. But like I thought the makeup in Poor Things like legitimately should have won and was really incredible. And the hairstyling is a key component of that movie as well. So that was my other one. That was my fourth miss, the fourth time that I should have listened to my heart. But I'm glad I hedged. I'm glad I hedged.
I just wanted to put in a plug and say in 2 weeks, when the only new movie is Godzilla X Kong, let's do a Godzilla -1 episode instead.
Yes.
And we
down.
could talk through that more because is it streaming yet? That was one that
No.
the Oscar Death Race people were getting really angry about because they couldn't find
You
it
can't
to
see it
watch
anywhere
it.
You
right
can't
now.
right now. I mean, yeah, it's not streaming yet. I have to assume it will come out, like you say, in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I would like to take this moment to mention the Godzilla X Kong trailer and how many times I've had to see it. To me, it's the new Argyle trailer. And I just want to say, with all due respect to Brian Tyler Henry, Brian Henry Tyler.
Yeah.
I'm flipping his names. If you can't say something is like a mini Kong, like that's just a regular ape. That's just a regular size ape. Like King Kong is a giant ape. So a mini Kong is just an ape. Like chill out. We got to let it go.
Oh, it looks so bad.
Isn't it Brian Tyree Henry? Not
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
That sounds
Yes.
right.
I just wanted to make sure we got
I
that on record.
apologize. I got to put respect on his name.
So I just
I did not do
Googled
that.
Godzilla -1. At this time, unfortunately, there's no officially announced digital release date for Godzilla. This is like really devastating. I want to see this movie so badly.
I will buy a Blu-ray if they put out if they put it out on physical before digital. I'll buy it.
IndieWire coming through. Godzilla -1 could win an Oscar, so why can't anyone see it? IndieWire asking the important questions. Hold on, keep talking. Maybe I'll read this.
Well, what I will say is it stinks that like in a normal situation, I feel like they would put it back in the theaters if they don't have a streaming thing lined up. But I bet they can't do that because there's a major studio releasing an American produced Godzilla movie.
Ugh.
And
You're
there's going to
exactly
be jostling about this.
So, although never confirmed by Toho, which I think is the studio that did Godzilla -1, it
That's
relates
the
to
Japanese studio, yeah.
Okay. It relates to an apparent contractual agreement between Toho, the Japanese studio that created and still owns the rights to Godzilla, and Legendary Entertainment, which licensed the monster character for a series of films released by Warner Brothers. So, yes, it's
Dark.
for the dumbest reason.
Yeah.
Money.
That is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation not being able to be promoted until Rogue One was out of theaters, or whichever order those were.
Right.
That same kind of agreement, which I think is so dumb because people are smart and they can figure these things out.
It's true.
Although then I said that and then immediately remembered how many of my normie family members thought Jyn Erso in Rogue One was just Rey. Like that was the next Rey movie. So maybe people aren't that smart, but yeah.
But that's a Star Wars continuity issue, not necessarily a
Sorry.
I mean, I don't know if I like the implication that the rhetorical situation and our academic background is why we're snobby about normies. Like, that's more of a film nerd thing.
I don't know how to explain. I just accidentally clicked on the rhetorical situation music. Sorry about that.
Oh, that felt pointed to me.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about what were our favorite sort of surprise wins. I think we all agreed our least favorite surprise in terms of the award was the Best Actress. Again, no disrespect to Emma Stone. What were people's favorite speeches? What were the favorite sort of speech moments for folks? Jen, how about you? You always ask the questions.
I really liked, in terms of like substance in the speeches, I actually really liked the 20 Days in Mariupol speech. That was really moving. And I could looked around the room and I could tell everyone, even the sort of casual viewers who kind of been popping in and out, anyone who was in the room was just like glued to the TV during that speech and really felt its gravity, I think. I was a little disappointed by Robert Downey Jr.'s speech, to be honest, because I think maybe I wasn't managing my expectations properly, but so many people have been like, yes, like this is going to be maybe we even said this on the show. This is going to be the serious one. Maybe he'll talk about his dad. He'll really open up about his journey, his career, and he just did the same thing he's been doing all season of just like giving a very charming speech, but mostly just thanking people and kind of being flippant about and self-deprecating about himself and his career. So I don't know, maybe Jimmy Kimmel hadn't set him up to do that properly. He was too annoyed by like all the jokes at his expense.
It felt possible there could have been a slap too. If Kimmel had done like one more beat of the jokes, it was like, is Downey gonna snap on this? Like, he seems pretty annoyed.
It was the closest he got to the character he plays in Oppenheimer. But I feel like I made a slap comment at some point. I can't remember what it was. I remember being like, "Don't say that. That's how we get slap part 2."
Yes.
Oh, it was Jimmy Kimmel coming for Bradley Cooper's mom. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so what did you think were the best speeches?
Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
I'm gonna dive in before PT takes it. I'm gonna say Cord Jefferson, because Cord Jefferson had an agenda, and he's already gotten to thank everybody, and so I think he did the calculus of, I'm standing in a room, and there are a lot of very powerful people in this room, and I have something I need to say, and for anybody listening who didn't remember, what he pointed out is that the industry has a problem, that they're only trying to make $200 million blockbuster movies, and you have to make room for the small movies like an American Fiction or a Past Lives or even a Zone of Interest, right? Or an Anatomy of a Fall. And I thought it was really smart and succinct and clearly planned to give the message so clearly, like, make $10-20 million movies and you'll be fine. And that really impressed me because I think cynical people on the internet are saying like, well, but that's like the movies he wants to direct forever, because the worst thing that could happen to Cord Jefferson is to get sucked up into Marvel, like we've seen so many of our good filmmakers of that scale, how that happens to them. So I really hope that he is listened to and that people think about it. And it does seem, strike issues aside, it seems like we're at a moment where we have all these little production houses that are really finding ways to make these movies scalable and profitable and so on. So that was my favorite. And I'll just in passing say, Davine killed it again and has given so many of these speeches. It's kind of amazing that she still had gas in the tank, but really just delivered again and was very heartfelt and very sweet. And, so really, really good opening one as well. PT, I stole yours, didn't I?
You did. I was going to say Cord Jefferson, but good. I should have deferred to you, and I'm glad I did, because American Fiction is your movie on our show, which that's worth noting. I really like Jonathan Glazer's speech for international feature for Zone of Interest. I thought he struck a really good tone. It didn't have, it wasn't as I guess. I don't want to say it wasn't as heartfelt, but the 20 Days in Mariupol was obviously just like, we're from there, we're living it. But I think Jonathan Glazer gave a good sort of what's the legacy of these stories and how does it relate to what's happening now. Really respected that. We've already shouted it out, but the Godzilla -1, the energy from them, they were so happy. They had the toys. Maybe they were models from the movie. I had assumed they were toys. That's my mindset, that they were bringing their own merchandise. And so, yeah, I thought that was really good. And, shout out Cillian Murphy, who I feel like folks were saying during the season, like, yeah, he's too aloof. He doesn't seem like super grateful about it. But I think that, he struck a really good tone about like who Oppenheimer was and what he means, and ending it with the, this is for the peacemakers, or, dedicating it to the peacemakers in the world. I thought was really nice. And then I will also say, to give some degree of justice to the song Happy Christmas, and to put a little bit of respect under the name of Sean Ono Lennon, who does great music in his own right, even though he is a Nepo baby. I did like him getting everyone to wish Yoko Ono a happy Mother's Day, even though poor Greg had to sit with War
Greg
is
just
Over.
shaking his head.
Hard pass on I don't endorse anything PT just said. I will respect PT. I will not hurt him, but that to me was like, no, because notice he didn't get an Oscar. He just went with them, right? Like he was just like, oh, and I'm sure they planned it like the three of them, that he would walk up with them, but he's not. The two directors got the Oscars, credited. And he just came along, and they were clearly ready to do it.
No.
He did work on the film.
He's an executive producer, but he's not like the producer who gets one of the awards.
And so then it was like, well, it felt like, this is so mean. When the Last Repair Shop team brought the little girl just to be like, look, she's here, she's adorable, it's so wonderful. It was that, but it was a 40-year-old Nepo baby. Like, hey, look, our buddy got to come here. So I'm being incredibly mean, and you should all just listen to PT instead of me. But I was so frustrated by that win. I was having none of it. I'm
looking at the transcript. Greg said they should have fired more bullets. Like, God, that's so cruel.
I will say, Greg, that PT did at my house get at me. He was like, why'd you let Greg beat up on Happy Christmas and Sean Lennon? I was like,
it is a good song. I don't know. I've got boomer music love, I guess. So come at me if you want.
I think it's because the short is not very good.
Right. It's easy for me to say, having not even watched the trailer for it, because it's like the description was like, oh, that sounds terrible. But it's not John or Yoko's fault. I mean, I don't think Yoko's really making a lot of creative decisions on this.
I don't think
so. Sean left the studio with Les Claypool to go and try to get a little Oscar out there, and he did. So very cynical, but whatever.
I'm now just realizing I use contrary logic for my shorts picks, because I use the name check logic to correctly predict War is Over, but then I incorrectly applied that logic to Wes Anderson. I should have just so I was not consistent. This has tripped me up before.
Can we / should we talk about Al Pacino?
Yes.
Like, what happened? What do you all think happened?
I believe what I said at my house in the moment was, we need to stop letting old people reveal Best Picture, because this has happened more than once. But yeah, Greg, what's your take on what actually happened? Like, is this a senior moment? Is this Al Pacino being like, we don't need this, I'm making an executive decision?
No, I think a senior moment, with all due respect and trying not to be ageist, but it seemed to me that the teleprompter had to be cueing him to at least read the names again. I even wonder if there's a little clip package that was supposed to roll, and he just never cued it and opened the envelope, because they ended up, it seemed like Kimmel was surprised, like everybody was reacting off kilter to me. So I think he just didn't look up at the teleprompter. He, in his mind, was like, I go out, I open the envelope. Now I'm doing a bad impression. I read it. And so that's what he did, and totally messed it up. But like, again, what is he, 83? Like, let's let people not be trotted out on stage for these high pressure things. That would be wonderful. Like, stay in the audience and we'll celebrate you there.
Right.
The other sort of separate from the just a senior moment of the sequence of events was speculation that he needs glasses to read the teleprompter, and he wasn't wearing them, and so he didn't see the teleprompter, and it was just like, what am I doing here? I guess I gotta open this envelope, and what am I seeing? I'm seeing Oppenheimer. And then that was it, and then everyone was like, oh, like,
I guess
it
the
was
show's
weird.
over.
It was weird how much it felt like, no, you're giving something away you're not supposed to give away yet, even though we were like 20 seconds away from when he was supposed to open it. But it did feel really wrong. It felt like the sacred ritual was being breached in some way, of just sort of
It
like,
looks
no,
like a lot of people on the internet are incensed that the nominees didn't get their final sort of like tribute,
Sure.
like ones that weren't Oppenheimer, basically. And I'm like, they had a clip throughout the show for each one, so I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like that might be going too far, but it was kind of like sad and weird and funny in the way that the end of the Oscars often are.
Ending with a whimper once again.
Yeah, see Anthony Hopkins winning over Chadwick Boseman as the last award.
I was
he's
wondering,
not even there to accept it.
I was wondering. I was like, they don't have. They're not going to make that mistake again and let actress.
I
be
thought
the
they
last
were
one.
going to. I was like, if they are saving Best Actress for last, like we have learned nothing. Like, what are you doing?
So they learned. They learned.
Yeah. We actually haven't really talked about Oppenheimer at all. So 7 wins, not the biggest haul, not the historic haul that maybe we thought could happen, but still really good, really solid. It really and at the end of the day, still dominated. So, I guess, what do we make of this? Are we just not talking about it because it was predicted so long ago, or I don't know. And I also thought Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas, they both gave great speeches. I think their working relationship as a couple seems really cute, that they're thanking each other in their speeches, and but yeah, what do we make of the Oppenheimer of it all?
It does feel a little weird because it's, I feel like we've been as a collective undervaluing this from the beginning. I did go back and look at our draft gen that you and I did, our hype draft. No Barbie mention, no Oppenheimer. We did mention it, I believe, at the end of the episode after we hadn't drafted either of them. But we were a little bit like, we don't know. To Greg's point earlier of like, Greta Gerwig's done a Barbie movie. Like, this could be good, but it also could be terrible. Like, who knows? And then Oppenheimer just sort of seemed like, yeah, Christopher Nolan's going to just do another movie. And then we loved it. It came out, Antonio's not here, so I can say we loved it. But it's just been, dominating the whole time, the awards discourse, that it's not a surprise. It did feel a little weird about like, oh yeah, Oppenheimer kind of had a soft night. It only, is one of the like 5 most awarded movies of the 21st century in a ceremony. So it won all the categories it was chalk for. It didn't win any that it was, sort of, had to be a contender a little bit, but that's not like the movie's fault. It's not like the fault of those categories. It firmly deserved like to be the biggest movie of the year. I think that it makes sense. I was ironically, I was after the ceremony. I finally finished the preview episode for the first preview episode of the long take review, and I think Greg's right. It's like, this is the movie. Like, when you think about 2023 in movies, Oppenheimer's going to be, if not the first movie, it's going to be one of the first 2 movies that comes up. So great. Yeah, I think excellent speeches, well-deserved all around. It won sort of the major technical awards, cinematography, editing, and score. And then, it won all these major above the line awards as well. I've been talking about this sort of over and over. It's the first movie since Ben-Hur, and only the 4th movie of all time to win picture director, actor, and supporting actor. And so, just for what a movie of dudes, I guess. Just a real like real male leading movie. But it was an historic night, even if it wasn't like the historic night that it could have been.
So this is the one between when I recorded the first part of the awards predictions and then the ceremony. I was like, busy work week. I've got a limited amount of time. Got to get to Dune again. So what's like the one I want to make sure I watch? And I did Oppenheimer because I hadn't seen it since opening night, and I think that was a mistake. And it was really, I'm glad I did, because it was like, okay, we've gotten tired of talking about it, but this is a really good movie and it's really well put together and makes some inspired choices. In everything PT just listed, I really focused in on the three technical at one, as like those are the ones it absolutely deserved, which were editing, editing, cinematography, and score. And just I was watching Oppenheimer. I did it across 2 nights. Sorry, Christopher Nolan, but I did always do it on my television, never on my cell phone. And As I was watching it for one part of the movie, my wife came in the room and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm watching Oppenheimer." It's just the marriage we have. Yeah, I'm just watching Oppenheimer. She sat there kind of for a minute, and I was like, listen to the score, and it happened to be some kind of lead up to the Trinity test, so we were in kind of an intense moment. But it's like you could just feel the momentum of that movie and pushing you towards that. And I was like, it's like this for 3 hours. It's kind of incredible that you are never kind of like, sit back and watch Oppenheimer. It's like it's always got this driving force. And so that's me trying to give a compliment to Ludwig.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a movie score I will listen to over and over again, but it is quite an achievement. I do think this really crowned him. I like, somebody said on some podcast, not the next John Williams, but the next Hans Zimmer, right? Like
Hmm.
Yes.
he's much more in that school of composing. And his second win, I think we've confirmed. Is it just two or
Yes,
is it two?
He won for
it's
Black
two.
Panther.
He won for Black Panther.
Yeah, so absolutely incredible, worth it. And he's young to have gotten so many nominations. And we obviously have our Star Wars love for him because he did the Mandalorian music and has contributed to some of those shows. So I just think it's going to be a long, great career, and it was a good time to see him awarded. Jen, you've been the highest on Oppenheimer. You always are like, it's the bomb, guys. So
Oh.
what do you? How did
For
you
the
feel?
record, I've never actually said that. I don't want listeners being like, "Oh, she made that joke." That's so crass. Yes, I mean, I was super happy about this, and I feel like I've maintained my energy for this movie all season, despite it being very long and it constantly being the front runner and never going away. And for all and what actually hearing you talk just now makes me think of when how we recognize an A paper, or at least how I
Mm.
recognize an A paper, and it's like when all of
Where's the drop? Now we need the music drop.
There you go. I won't play the whole thing though. When I think of the way I recognize an A paper, it's not necessarily a totally flawless paper, because I don't think Oppenheimer is flawless. I think, like, I was just watching a really unfortunate interview with Florence Pugh where the interviewer didn't even know she was in Oppenheimer. Like, she was like
no.
talking to her about Dune, and then at the like on the red carpet, and was like, "Wait, you're in Oppenheimer?" It was really bad. It was a bad interview. I actually don't know who it was or like which outlet it was or anything like that. It just kind of popped up when I was looking for messy videos. And an A paper is when all of the component parts are firing on all cylinders together in harmony. And I feel like that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like they have a great idea. It's really executed on the sentence level. The organization is supporting the ideas, right? There's a whole bunch of things that as a writing teacher I can list of, like, all of those things have to be working together towards a common goal. And that's how an A paper happens, right? And so what you're just saying about the score, the cinematography, the editing, all of those things have to be excellent and working together and supporting each other to make Oppenheimer the great movie that it is. And I think that's what's so special about it, is because it's both technically, like, the writing is there, the acting's there, the technical, like, and that's what the best picture winner is, you know what I mean? Or should be, I think, is one where all of the different aspects of filmmaking come together to make something really special.
Now, Jen, would you describe that conceptually as fusion or fission?
No.
No.
No, I mean, I think it's fusion, right? Because it's fusion.
I think it's
It would
fusion.
have to be fusion. Yeah.
My other note from that little lovely exchange where you both made really good points is, Greg, I think that you asked your wife, "Can you hear the music?" That's actually the way you phrased it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Nice.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm hoping that actually Oppenheimer has a longer life now that people have seen that, because there were a bunch of people being like, oh man, at my house being like, I really gotta watch Oppenheimer, right? Like they hadn't yet somehow, and they were like, gotta do it. And that was the biggest movie where people were like, yeah, I gotta, why haven't I, they were embarrassed for themselves of like, why haven't I seen this movie yet? So
Get
it
that
may even have
Peacock
like a,
subscription, Peacock Premium. There you
yeah,
go.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, there was discussion about the, you know, how it's easy to tell yourself like, oh, I'm just gonna watch like an episode of this TV show. Like I'm committing 30 minutes, 50 minutes to this TV show, and then you may watch like 4 or 5 of them like in a setting. But if you think about, I have to spend 2 or 3 hours watching this movie, it's like I can't do that. Like I can't commit
never
to that right now. So I think it's interesting. It's also interesting the people that were like, I don't know, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, those seem really long. And then one of the 2 or 3 movies they saw last year was John Wick Chapter 4, which is a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
So maybe there need to be more shootouts in Oppenheimer. More
people
stairs.
falling downstairs.
Yeah, more stairs.
The other thing I just want to mention before we leave Oppenheimer, probably forever, it's like, which sounds crazy, is that there are a lot of people whose opinions I respect, where Oppenheimer isn't their thing. You know, Hasib chiefly among them. He sent me a photo of his ballot, and next to I don't remember which category it was, but next to an Oppenheimer wing, he just put ugh. And it's not for everybody. Not everyone's hearing the music, and that's okay. I'm just really happy that we have this movie.
Because he'll never get here. I have a friend who you've both now met who loves the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Like, will lecture you for hours and hours about how Dark Knight is the greatest film ever made. And I'm like, so you want to go to Oppenheimer? It's like, no. I'm like, well, like you love what he does, and like this is like the best version of what he does, and it's like, I'm good. I'm like, okay, all right. So it is just always curious to get out of the circles of super pundits and really like talk to people who watch movies like normal people and see what can break through and what can. And so I think you're exactly right that, some really literate film people don't like Oppenheimer, and also it's too much of a commitment for a lot of the like general movie going public. So,
and yet it made $400 or $500 million domestically.
Yeah.
So like it was very successful, and that did have some Barbenheimer. As Emily Blunt said, you were riding our coattails.
Yeah.
As Ryan Gosling said to Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
And that's true. But this may be one of the more widely seen Best Picture winners of the last decade. I think.
I will cite again Nomadland, which I think only 7 people have seen to this day. But it enjoyed those 7 people.
It's true. I'm looking. Unfortunately, what I have pulled up is the movies that won the most awards. So it has Dune, and it has Fury Road, and Bohemian Rhapsody. But those were not Best Picture winners. So yeah. I mean, that's one of the critiques of the Academy Awards in recent years has been they go small. Hurt Locker won instead of Avatar when everyone saw Avatar and very few people saw Hurt Locker. But this was an instance where, again, there was a bigger movie that was nominated that folks can be like, I can't believe this bigger movie, Barbie, didn't win. But Oppenheimer was like one of the biggest movies of the year. Like, so, I think that this is all true and it's totally fair. There's some people where it did not speak to them. Our absent co-host who is not here because Past Lives did not win either of its awards.
Right.
He would also sort of say like, yeah, Oppenheimer, it's fine. Like it's, whatever, good for you. But it wasn't for him. And there's folks who may not, want to go and see it, but this was a pretty popular movie for winning and
which honestly is pretty incredible considering most of it takes place in a Senate hearing.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, you know what I mean? Like that it has so much of that kind of people talking in rooms, sort of like political machinations kind of aspect to it, I think. And that it is so bogged down in kind of the details of history.
And that's one of the critiques. I think the people who don't like it I mean, there's also the critiques of like there's only a couple of prominent women characters, and they are very much sort of, you're here to support the men or cause problems for the man. I think that's very understandable, and I think there's people that are like, if you're talking about something as important as the development of the atomic bomb, why are we looking at government procedural events affecting the poor people who feel sad about making it instead of the actual victims who had it? I also did see a post. I mean, technically, it's not a tweet because it was on a different service, but I think it was Blue Sky that said with Oscar wins for both Oppenheimer and Godzilla -1, this is the first year that a movie and its sequel won an Academy Award.
That's great. Well, that's the thing is, like, I feel like I've seen people calling for the Japanese answer to Oppenheimer. And like get a I'm blanking out on which director they flagged, but like let's get the Godzilla -1 writers to write sort of their version of Oppenheimer, and I would love to see that. I think that would be amazing. All right. Anything else that we haven't covered?
Can I just throw out 2 bits of trivia at you, which one of which I believe has been discussed before, but I'll say it again. This is now the third time in the 21st century that a year ending in 3 had a movie pair up wins with actor and supporting actor, which are the only times it's happened since the late 50s. Mystic River and Dallas Buyers Club being the other 2, and now Oppenheimer. And then the other one I have is Robert Downey Jr. has become the first cast member of SNL to win an Academy Award after a bunch of nominations. I'm looking at this list. It's like 9 or 10 people have been nominated, but he's the first cast member. 2 behind the scenes SNL people, Adam McKay and Howard Shore, won in the past, but for actual performers, he's the first to win.
Wow.
And a pleasant reminder that Dan Aykroyd is an acting nominee for Driving Miss Daisy.
I was going to say, is like Will Ferrell nominated for Stranger Than Fiction or something? Like, I'm trying to think of who else would be.
I was trying really hard to not to go too deep, but since you opened the door, I'm going to have to give you the list. So there's 2 people who were nominated before Saturday Night Live started. George Coe, who was someone in the first cast in 1975, was nominated for a live action short. Randy Quaid, now Insane Man, is nominated for supporting actor for The Last Detail in the early 70s. 2 nominees for Joan Cusack in supporting actress, Working Girl and In and Out. Dan Aykroyd for Driving Miss Daisy. Robert Downey Jr., 2 previous nominations, of course, Chaplin and Tropic Thunder. Michael McKean for Best Original Song for A Mighty Wind. Bill Murray, actor, Lost in Translation. Eddie Murphy, supporting actor, Dreamgirls. Kristen Wiig, original screenplay for Bridesmaids. All nominated, never won.
So a lot of people have come close.
Yeah, more than I would have thought.
Is that Dan Aykroyd from We Are the World? That Dan Aykroyd?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See what we're talking about instead of the Ghostbuster sequel in 2 weeks as well. There we go. I have only one last bit of business. I need you both to raise your right hands. I'm waiting. I state your name.
I state your name.
Do solemnly swear that I will watch all the movies before next year's ceremony. Challenge dropped. I want to see you join this club because you'll love it and you'll have a great time and you get to just watch a bunch of movies. So
I heard you talking about the documentaries and it did not sound like you had a great time. It sounded like it was a rewarding and soul nourishing experience, but great time was not what I got out of that conversation.
All right.
No, great. I really do aspire to, at least in theory, and then it's just I can't. So I need strategies. You need to coach me through this. Like about how to get it
biggest
done.
strategy is you now have, we've been joking in our text threads and so on that this is the end of season 1 of the Long Take Review, because it started with Oscars last year, and we're back around to the Oscars. But I think if we are committed to weekly episodes, as I think we are, I think we're going to cover a lot of ground. And I also think Dune's going to take care of like half of the work.
That's true.
I think because it'll be a small year in terms of numbers, and we'll have covered a lot across the fall. And you've already seen a bunch of Sundance darlings. Like I think you both have a good jump start at this year in particular. And it'll come down to, can you find the shorts showcase? I'll even accept that you don't watch the shorts, but if you just do the features, I think that's a good goal.
I actually
It
usually
always
do
comes down
manage to
to a
watch all
few.
the shorts. Like in past years, I have done that. I have watched all the
Yeah.
shorts. It was a combination of like animated features seemed harder to watch this year online, and
Yep.
then just like I ran out of time. It turns out when you produce more content, there's less time for watching. So if we can somehow record less than 2-hour episops, then I will free up a lot of time, because I'm spending the time editing us. Our shenanigans.
Totally fair.
I will just note that, and this is really trying to like badger the teacher for a better grade. That taking aside the documentaries, of which I watched none, and the shorts, in which I only watched the Wes Anderson one, I only missed 4 movies. And it was 3 of the international ones, and then Robot Dreams, which was not readily available. I missed the 2 sort of local LA screenings that tickets were sold for it, and theoretically I could have gone, but it didn't. But by the time I went, it was one of them was sold out, and then the other one was a bad time. So I mean, to your point, Greg, I was pretty close. And that is because I watched The Color Purple from like 11:30 to 1:30 the night before the Oscars. So I got that one in under the wire. But yeah, no, I think it's feasible. And Jen, there are multiple theaters up here in LA that do the shorts.
That's true.
The shorts packages and run them for a couple of weeks. Like it's the Alamo does it, and I know Vidiot's was doing it, and I think some of the American Cinematheque ones do it as well, and have multiple times when when it goes. So I think we can work to make that happen. I'm always daunted by the documentaries because they seem like they're just so heavy. But yeah. I
don't think that Moth documentary I watched at Sundance is making it. So I'm starting from ground zero this year. At least I had seen Navalny last year. Like that was because of Sundance. But maybe that's the ticket. We got to go to a film festival or something.
There it is.
To get ahead of it. All right. Well, I want to thank first all our listeners for following us along during award season, going on this journey with us. It's been really fun. And of course, thanks to Antonio, who can be here, Greg, and PT for all of the grade A commentary, analysis, stats, completionist viewings, all the things that I think, we are all working in harmony together with each of our weird, like, movie nerd lanes. So it's been really, so thanks to everybody. PT, remind folks where they can find us for next season. We're not gonna. Maybe we'll take a short break, but we're not gonna let up. Like the next year, the next award season has already started.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much of a break we are taking, because we've already talked about some episodes we want to do to clean up movies we didn't see this cover yet. Anyway, before I do all of that, we have to thank Jen for all of the work she's doing. She's the leader. You're the one, like, as you referenced in why you can't see all these movies. You're editing, you're organizing, you're scheduling, you're putting the docs together, you're hosting us on your Substack. So thank you for all of the work and for keeping the show afloat and moving forward, and herding us cats to the microphones to talk about these movies. So if folks want to hear us continue to do so, they should subscribe to the podcast wherever they get their podcasts. We are available anywhere. Where you are listening now is a good place to do so. And please leave a review, give us a rating. that helps increase the visibility, and assuming the review isn't that you hate us, it'll make us feel good. So that is nice. You can also follow us on Instagram and Threads at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com. You can follow the profile on Letterboxd. The username is LTRpod, and you can tag your reviews LTRpod as well to let us know what you are watching.
And Greg, where can we find you?
Hey, I also co-host a series of Star Wars reaction shows on a podcast feed called Rebel Base Card. And this week's guest, just recorded last weekend, was none other than PT McNiff, joining us to talk about a new episode of the Star Wars show Bad Batch. So if people want to nerd out with both of us over there. And when we started that recording, Jen, my co-host Greg said, like, I looked at the combined total for your Oscar prediction episodes, and I couldn't believe you'd done 4 hours this week. And PT and I were like, nah, we don't do that. That's not us. Oh, but Jen did. Jen was on both of those episodes, and because we I think that's the best emblematic example of you put in twice as much as the rest of us do on this show, at least. So it is very kind of you to let us ride your coattails. You are the Barbie to our Oppenheimer.
Aww.
I like that nice. PT's wearing black, so it really feels Oppenheimer-ish.
It works.
Yeah.
It works, yeah. Well, thank you.
I need the hat.
Maybe we need to work out a system and wean everybody off me being the only host, and so that we can divide and conquer, and someone can take over the main hosting duties. Not all the time, but like when we have a crunch like the Oscars, that might be helpful. I believe in you all. I know someone can do it. Like there's nothing magic about me being like, welcome to the Long Take Review. Like I'm just here doing that. Anyway. So yeah, and you can find me at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI on Instagram and Threads, and Qui-Gon Jen on Letterboxd. I can't believe it's over. Bye, everybody.
We did it. King of the worlds.
I wanted you to keep talking, and you could just put music over you for the last.
Oh, like I'm being laid off the stage? Oh, that would be really good. Maybe I can try to do that. Okay. Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free to receive new podcast episodes, as well as written reviews of films with Oscar buzz and new films and series from pop franchises like Star Wars and Marvel.
Hello, and welcome back to the Long Take Review podcast. I, Greg Cass, am your only host because I have fired Jen and PT. I am taking it over. Antonio will be allowed to guest one time a month when there's an A24 release, and he's free at midnight on a Thursday.